everyone, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am going to be just basically catching you guys up on everything that has happened in the last year. That sounded very dramatic. Actually, it's really not that dramatic, but if you guys have been watching my videos for however long, or if you've been watching me and catching up with what I've been doing since like December, then you would know that in like random little videos here and there, I've been speaking about different things like medical anxiety and going through a lot of like appointments and everything like that. And I said that I would do a video where I basically just sit down and talk to you guys about what I got diagnosed with, everything that is going on, just because I feel like when I was at like the height of all of this going on a couple of months ago, I would look for comfort in a lot of these sort of videos where people would kind of give me hope that like everything will be okay and there's like a light at the end of the tunnel. So you might be watching this just because you're nosy and you just want to know what's been going on, or you might be watching this because like you need some reassurance and you're going through similar things. So basically I just wanted to make this video as almost like a comfort video, but also for me just to kind of like get everything out in one place. So yeah, it's going to be basically just one big video about like health, which is honestly, I feel like I have to start this video off by saying the most important thing in our lives. Up until really all of this started, I've never really suffered personally with anything like bad to do with my health. Like when I was younger, I broke both of my arms, so like obviously that was quite bad, and I've had like different illnesses like here and there, but anything on like a more like serious, like actually worrying scale was like never really happened to me, touch wood. So when all of this kind of like kick started, it kind of just took me really by surprise, because my health is something that I've never had to worry about. I feel like a lot of my family has had to worry about it, and I've worried about it for other people. Like if you guys have again like listened to some of my videos, you would know that my mum was really ill when I was growing up, and so I've kind of had to deal with that. But yeah, when it comes to me, I've never really had to deal with it, so it was a big shock. So I feel like I'm just gonna start from the beginning, from when everything kind of went on. I've had to kind of write everything down because so much happened that I didn't want to forget any key parts to kind of what's been going on. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. If you do, please smash a huge thumbs up, and other than that, let's just get started. So yeah, like I was saying, first and foremost, I think the most important thing to take away from this video is that your health is everything, and I am so beyond grateful to be sat here today healthy talking to you guys. I think when you have your health, you have everything, and this has truly made me realize that. I mean, I kind of knew that anyway, but sometimes it just takes a little like bump in the road to really make you feel grateful for your health. And yeah, I've just never in my life been more grateful for something. So I thank my lucky stars every single day that I'm healthy and that I'm happy, and I hope that all of you guys are healthy and happy too, because it honestly is so important. So basically, I'm gonna leave out a few tiny details because some of them are very personal and I don't want to share that on the internet just yet. Anyway, maybe I'll decide to at a later date, I don't know, but I don't really feel comfortable sharing some of the details yet. And I also don't want to overshare, because when I talk about medical anxiety, it will become very apparent that you can get very triggered easily by things, and I feel like I'm at a position now where I can share this with you guys. But if people were to start diagnosing me in the comments or like self-diagnosing me with things again, I felt like it would all start up. So I politely ask that nobody like DMs me anything or like tries to re-diagnose me with anything, because that is what can trigger it off again. And I feel like I finally got to a place where I'm not too triggered or bothered by things, so I don't want to go back to that place, hence why I've waited so long to upload this video. So yeah, I am going to leave certain little details out just so I don't get a load of "Hi lovely, I know you've been diagnosed with this, but you might have this," because that's just going to send me spiraling again. So please don't like try and diagnose me with anything else, because it's not a good road to go down. So yeah, that is just like the little disclaimer. Anyway, let's get started now. So something happened at the end of last year which kind of triggered everything in my body just to kind of like go wrong. I don't want to say exactly what went down because it's just very personal, but sometimes like an event or finding something out can trigger something in your body, and this is what this did for me. And it just triggered like the most bizarre reaction, and it literally felt like everything in my body was just giving up on me. And I think I did such a good job of like keeping this away from YouTube and like hiding this online, which I didn't want to do and I would never want to do that, but at the same time I wasn't in a position to want to share everything with everyone. So like it wasn't as though I was purposely hiding it, but I just didn't feel comfortable sharing it to the like extent that it was. So it started off like I was coming out in like full body rashes. So I had this one really bad rash that I actually spoke about in one of my videos, and it actually got put down to just being like a skin reaction or whatever, but it also could have been related to this, who knows. But I was like covered in like red rashes all down like my bum, my legs, my back, my knees, my elbows, and it was so bad because I'd never really had anything like that before. So that was like one of the things that started it all. And then I developed the most horrendous back pain, hip pain, like ovary sort of pain, joint pain. It was just everywhere, and I've always really struggled with my knees. That's just been something that like I've been dealing with for the whole of my life, really. For the last like 10 years I've always just had really bad knees, so that one didn't really come as a surprise. But my back and my hips was the most horrendous pain. Like I was walking around every single day with a tube of deep heat in my bag because I would have to put it on every couple of hours because I'd be in so much pain. It started with my like ovary sort of area first, and that was really bad, and then it's like kind of went to like my back, and it started in my back when I was in New York. It was the last day we were in New York and I woke up and I was in agony. Like we had to go home early that day back to the hotel because I couldn't walk around anymore. So I was like, something is really wrong here, and this is where it triggered my medical anxiety. So I basically, like I said, I'd never really experienced like bad pain like this before, and it was constant. I was waking up every day and going to bed every day in the same amount of pain, and I never knew what I was going to wake up to be like. I was like, am I going to wake up and be even in more pain? Am I going to wake up and it's going to go? Like I just didn't know what it was. So I made the stupid mistake of starting to Google all of my symptoms, starting to Google everything. And before this point in time, Googling my symptoms had never affected me, but something just switched, and I was Googling everything and self-diagnosing myself with everything under the sun. And this is like probably the lowest point that I've ever experienced, because I've heard people speak about medical anxiety before but never haven't experienced it until then. I could never really understand the full extent of it, and for those of you who have suffered with it and still suffer, I am so incredibly sorry that you suffer with something so horrendous, because it's absolutely horrendous. Like I first of all self-diagnosed myself with, and also I just want to put a bit of like a trigger warning and disclaimer out here because I don't want to upset anybody by talking about these subjects, but I feel like I just want to be completely honest with like what was going on in my brain. So I self-diagnosed myself with either ovarian cancer or like an ovarian tumor because I had every single symptom of it, and I'd convinced myself, like I'd absolutely convinced myself that that is what I had. And I still remember I was scream crying in my bed. Like I've never cried like that in my life because I was like convinced myself that I had it. And I remember I rang my mum, and it was just the look on my mum's face, like when I was telling her this, when I didn't know this for a fact, I just like convinced myself I had it, was just horrible. Like I should never have called my mum and told her something like that. And I remember every time I'd have a bit of like an episode like this, I'd always try and just like turn the camera on to calm myself down, which might sound really stupid to some people, but like in my head, because I find comfort in vlogging, I was like, if I turn the camera on, I'll stop crying. And I watched back some of the videos like a couple of months after, and I was just watching them and I sobbed watching them, because watching that video back was just like remembering all the pain that I felt. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna delete all those videos. That was the weirdest decision I ever made. But yeah, I self-diagnosed myself with that, and that was awful. And then I, off the back of this, like because I kept diagnosing myself with loads of other stuff as well, I started to get panic attacks, and I experienced my first really bad panic attack. I want to say it was in like March, but it might have been in May. I can't remember if it was before or after I went to America. I think it was before, so I think it must have been March. And I remember I was laid on the sofa all day, I couldn't move, and I had like the heaviest feeling in my chest, like I just felt sick to my absolute stomach, and the pain wasn't getting any better. I was struggling to breathe, I could feel my heart rate going really fast, and I was like, I am gonna have to go to A&E. And for me, it was like such a vicious battle, because I don't like anything to do with doctors and hospitals. It really freaks me out and it really scares me, and I think that comes from me watching everything that my mum went through as a kid. Even though they saved her life, I think it just terrified me in a sense, so I feel like I have that engraved in my brain. So the fact that like I was willingly taking myself to A&E, like I knew there was something wrong. So like Callum came with me and he sat there with me for hours, and they gave me like an ECG, they checked all my blood pressure and everything, and he basically said like, you're having a panic attack. So I went to stay at Callum's that night, and having the reassurance from the doctor that what was happening to me was a panic attack helped me calm down. But then a lot of the time the medical anxiety that I was suffering with made me not even believe the doctors. So from this I then decided to book myself in for an ultrasound, because I had obviously convinced myself that I had like ovarian cancer or ovarian tumours or something, and I was also missing all of my periods. And whether this was because of stress or what, I didn't know. It wasn't really like unusual for me to not come on my periods because I've always had irregular periods, but it just kind of like triggered it again. So I went and had an ultrasound, and almost immediately she told me that I had polycystic ovaries. This was something that I had already thought in my head, to be honest, that I might have, but obviously I just never had the confirmation of it. But I'd always sat and thought to myself, I've probably got something wrong in that region, because my periods have been so irregular all my life. Like I could be on clockwork for like 6 months and then miss it for 3 months and then come on and have 2 a month, so on so on. So she said to me I've got polycystic ovaries, and I needed to book in to the doctors to get some blood tests to kind of like further the diagnosis, just like ensure that it was that. But that day was such a relief knowing that I didn't have like any tumours or anything else wrong. It was just polycystic ovaries. And then when I was like doing more research about this and I was speaking to the doctors, it can actually, like, your symptoms for things like this can actually begin in your 20s, and they can be triggered by an event or something happening in your life. So I've always had polycystic ovaries, but I've not ever had any symptoms of them. But from having this like thing happen, it basically triggered all of the symptoms to begin in my body and like begin really bad. So you know, you hear people who have like polycystic ovaries and they don't have any symptoms, and in which case that's amazing, but then you hear of other people and they have horrendous symptoms, and sadly that is me. So I went to the doctors and I had a load of blood tests, but I had a load of blood tests for like everything. So they basically did like a full health checkup on like my heart, my lungs, like the inflammatory marker, the ovarian cancer marker, everything I was getting tested for. And I've just been tested for those before I went to America in April. So when I was in America, I found out my results, and I was so happy because all of my results came back like amazingly clear. They said that every single thing they tested me for was amazing, like the risk of me having like heart attacks, like my lungs, like glucose levels, insulin levels, whether I was anemic, whether I was diabetic. I'd literally been tested for like everything under the sun, and my ovarian tumour marker came back really good as well. So I was like, oh my god, this is such relief, but I'm still in so much pain. So I got all of those results back and I was super happy, but I was still like telling myself that something else was wrong, because the amount of pain that I was in was just undescribable. And I know that you can have like PCOS flare-ups, so I could have been in the middle of a really bad flare-up, but when you're still experiencing all of that pain, like nothing else registers in your head. I'm just like, I'm in so much pain, something else has to be wrong. So like I got to the point of not even really believing the doctors. So I then went to a gynecologist in London, and I paid for a private gynecologist appointment, and I thought I was going to have an internal ultrasound. That is pretty much what I booked in for. But when I got there, I kind of just got like ignored almost and not listened to. And I hate like saying that out loud, because I know all these doctors are absolutely amazing, but I paid like a lot of money for this appointment, and I basically just got given these tablets to try and induce my period, and I just didn't really feel like I was listened to. Like I really, at that time in my life, needed someone to speak to, like a medical professional, about all of this stuff. And yeah, I kind of just got swept under the carpet, and I got given these tablets. I can't remember what they were called now, but they had a hormone in that would like induce my body into having a period, and it didn't work. I did all of the tablets, and then I came on my period like months after. So yeah, they didn't really work. So that was just like a big waste of money, to be honest. So a month goes on and I was still suffering with the most horrendous medical anxiety. Like my whole life got taken over by it. I couldn't watch TikTok because every little thing, like if someone's medical like TikTok came up, I'd be triggered. I was even just watching Saf on Hunted, and at the end of like every advert there'd always be like a stand up to cancer advert, and Byron would actually have to forward the advert for me because I physically couldn't hear that word, because he knew that like it would send me spiraling. Like I'd literally be sat with all my friends and we'd be having a laugh and stuff, and all that would be in my head was, I'm gonna die, I've got this wrong with me, I've got that. Even though I'd just been given like all these all cleared from the blood tests and everything, I was still so convinced. And yeah, my friends were amazing through it because they tried to like help me in the ways that they could help me, and my mum did as well. And oh my god, it was just awful. Like I literally, like all my friends would be sat like laughing and having fun, and I'd be sat on my phone like googling symptoms for some random like disease that I'd never even heard of before, and convincing myself that I had it. So yeah, that was really, really bad. So then a month went on after that, and I actually had a MRI scan. I was recommended to get one of these from my doctor because of all the pain that I was experiencing in my back and my hips. And obviously when he said that, I was like in my head, like, you think that I've got, I don't know, like a tumour or I've got cancer or something like that. So I was convinced, because the pain, like, it wasn't just like in my lower back, I'd have like random little like spasms of pain in my back, but also what made it worse was a lot of this pain was actually the medical anxiety coming out in me physically. And when you think yourself into having a pain, like because I was getting so distressed, I was actually making the pain worse, which I didn't think was humanly possible. But the human body is a crazy thing, and the brain is a crazy thing, and like I thought myself into thinking the pain was worse than it actually was, even though it was still really bad, but you know what I mean. So I had a full body MRI scan. They did like my back, my brain, my pelvis, all like my ovaries, all of my organs, everything. And I'm not gonna lie, the MRI scan was like one of the worst days of my life. I went for this scan and I was so freaked out about it because I went on my own first of all, and I'd never been to like a hospital to have anything like this done before. Like when I had the ultrasound, it was in a like tiny little clinic. Like this was like in a full-blown hospital, and like I was just terrified, and I had to put a hospital gown on. It was the first time I'd put a hospital gown on, and when you haven't done these things before, it's just not nice. I'm quite claustrophobic, and obviously I was in that machine for like it took about an hour, and I had like the thing over my head, and then they had to put like this compression thing on my stomach when I was having all of this bit scanned, and I was having to do like intermittent breathing for like 15 seconds on and off, and it was just making me panic even more. But I managed to get through it, and then they said to me that my results were going to be up to 2 weeks. So those 2 weeks were just awful waiting. But then I actually got really lucky, and I got my results about 3-4 days after I had the MRI. So they emailed me the results, and I was absolutely petrified. I'd convinced myself that it was going to be really, really bad, and it wasn't at all, thank god. It basically had just confirmed everything that I'd already been told. So I got told that I had, and this is why I don't want to say where, because I know that people are going to like say things, but I got told that I have a cyst somewhere, which I don't want to say where, but it's apparently very, very rare to have. Not a lot of people have them, and you don't really get any symptoms. Like the only reason you know they're there is when you have a scan and it shows up. But he said to me that having that cyst was of no clinical significance, which basically means like it doesn't matter, it's not going to cause me any harm by having it there. So yeah, I found out that I had a cyst that I didn't know about. Found out that I had a couple of, I can't remember what they're called now, but they're cysts that again are of no clinical significance in another area, but I had like loads of them. But again, like I said, that doesn't matter. So even though I have those two things, I'm fine. Then I found out obviously about the polycystic ovaries. He said they also showed up, and they were showing up with like a lot of like cysts on. So he was like, you've got PCOS. So obviously I already knew that I'd been diagnosed with that. And then I also found out that I had something else, which this is the part that I don't want to share, which I know everyone's going to be like, we want to know what it is, blah blah blah. And it's fine, like it's not life-threatening in the slightest. I kind of like figured out this is probably where the pain was coming from, or like was originating from. So yeah, I basically found out there was one other thing wrong with me. So I found out all of that, but everything with my back was fine. They found there was nothing there. Everything was completely fine. All of my organs were completely fine. Brain was completely fine. Yeah, everything was fine apart from these like 4 different findings. So then I went to the doctors to speak about like what they'd found, and he basically gave me a few different options on what I can do. So I obviously got diagnosed with PCOS, and around this time as well, I forgot to mention this, but I also got diagnosed with IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, which is really common to get diagnosed with alongside PCOS. Like, a lot of people who have PCOS will actually develop IBS. And again, this was triggered in my 20s from this event that happened. So I have, you know, I've always had a bit of a dodgy stomach, but like it's obviously gotten really bad, hence why I'm still waiting actually to get a like allergy and intolerance test, because I'm trying to figure out what I can and can't eat, because it's just weird things that will set my IBS off, and I have like more flare-ups than I do non-flare-ups, if that makes sense. So yeah, that wasn't great to find out that I had that, because I was just like, oh my god, it's another thing. When I went to the doctors, he was so lovely, and he basically said to me, obviously because I have PCOS, if you don't know what that is, by the way, it's something called polycystic ovary syndrome, and it is where you have lots of little cysts on your ovaries, and it can mean that you obviously don't have regular periods. You'll like either miss them, you'll have really irregular ones. So like, just for example, I had a period in December last year, then I didn't have another period until March, and then I had like a 21-day period, and then I'd come off for 2 weeks, then come on again. So I have really irregular periods. So that's another symptom. And then another symptom is like male pattern of balding. So like here and here on my hair, you just kind of like bald, and like your hair's a lot thinner, which mine is. Another symptom is lower back pain, which I have, and the ovarian pain, and it can be like a dull sharp pain or like a stabbing pain, and that is exactly what I have, and you can only feel it in like one ovary at a time sometimes, which again is what I have. I can't remember. Oh, another symptom is like acne and really oily skin. Touch wood, my skin's amazing at the moment, but when I was younger I used to suffer with horrendous skin. My skin was awful. Like, I don't know if I ever vlogged it, I probably did, to be honest. If I can find a picture, I'll find a picture, but yeah, it was really bad. So I had that. Obviously IBS is another really like common symptom of PCOS. I have that. Another really common symptom of PCOS is weight gain, and I found myself gaining a lot of weight this year, which to be honest I wasn't mad about, because I have always found it really hard to gain weight. So the fact that I was putting on a little bit of weight, I really didn't mind. What I don't appreciate though is the comments of people saying that I've put on weight, just because I think like weight is such a touchy subject, and I really don't think that that should be spoken about online at all, and I really don't think it should be commented on, because you actually have no idea what people are going through. Like, I was getting a lot of comments saying that I'd put on a lot of weight around my face, and my stomach looked really big, and I actually have PCOS belly, which I can't do anything about, and also my face, yeah, like I'd put on a bit of weight. So that was really not nice for me to deal with, because I was kind of happy about the weight that I'd gained until I saw people's comments about it, and then it made me feel really sad. And like, another really common thing you can gain from having PCOS is body dysmorphia, because basically I have PCOS belly, so I'll wake up in the morning and my stomach will be like really flat, and I'll look, to be honest, like tiny. I don't mind saying it, I think I actually would look tiny. And then a couple of hours later, as soon as I've eaten and as soon as I've like started to do stuff, the bottom part of my belly just will literally stick out and will be so bloated, but like painful bloating. Like, I'll walk around like holding my belly like, oh my god, this is so uncomfortable. On some days I've genuinely looked 6 months pregnant, and it's not normal. I look at myself and I'm like, how on earth do I look like this right now? My stomach would bloat about that much. It was just so uncomfortable and so horrible, and it still happens now. And yeah, that's like the symptom of PCOS that I hate the most, the bloating and how uncomfortable it is. So yeah, I have that. And then the other main symptom of PCOS is obviously infertility, which it can make you infertile, which was the thing that made me the most upset, because I am so excited to one day have a family. I'm so excited to one day be, fingers crossed, be pregnant and have a baby or a couple of babies, and just, I've always spoken about wanting children. So when I found this out, I was like absolutely heartbroken, and I want to be honest that I was heartbroken, because I know that there's so many amazing options for like when you have PCOS. Like, by the way, you still can get pregnant. Like, I could get pregnant any time, but it just makes it a lot harder to get pregnant. So I didn't want to come on here and be really negative and be like, oh my god, like I'm so sad that I might not be able to get pregnant, but like I am, and that is something that I'm, you know, sad about. And I'm praying with every single part of me that when the time does come for me to want to have a baby, I can have a baby, and if I can't do it naturally, I will find another way to do it, and that is just the way that it will go. But yeah, that was the bit that like hit me the hardest with that. So basically, when I went to the doctors anyway, he gave me a couple of options, and I basically, at some point, whenever that is, I don't know, will possibly be having surgery to do ovarian drilling, which is basically where they're going to drill holes in my ovaries to help an egg release, but obviously I don't really need to do that until I want to have a baby, so I'm kind of just putting that one off a little bit. And then I'm also basically not entirely sure if I have endometriosis, so I've got suspected endo, which means I can't exactly remember what endo is. I'm gonna have to, I'll put the little definition on here, but I think it's like where all the blood and stuff like grows on the outside of your uterus or your womb. I can't remember, don't want to say exactly like what it is and then get it wrong, but I'm pretty, that's basically what it is, and that causes like the most horrendous period pain, which I also have. You basically can't get diagnosed with endometriosis unless you have the keyhole surgery to diagnose you with it. So whenever I do have this like ovarian drilling, and they also want to do a dye test, which is where they're going to put dye in my fallopian tubes just to make sure that they are open and the egg can be released and go down. So whenever they do that, obviously I'll also find out if I have endometriosis or not. And also then whilst I do that surgery, I will also have the other thing that I don't want to speak about will also be sorted when I have that surgery. So yeah, that is basically in a nutshell what has happened to me in the last 9 months. And honestly, I can safely say I'm feeling a lot better than I was. I have definitely gotten more used to living with the pain, but I can deal with the pain better now. I know what it is, and like actually got the all clear from everything else that I thought I had. So I'm definitely learning to live with the pain of like my back and my hips and stuff like every day. And the joint pain is awful, all here, and my legs and stuff. But yeah, I'm starting to live with it, which is getting easier, and it's definitely gotten a lot easier because the pain isn't as bad as it was when I was thinking to myself I had worse things. The medical anxiety is still very much there, but nowhere near there as much as it was. I've gotten so much better at googling things and self-diagnosing myself with things. Like in my head, you know, I'm still really bad if I have a headache, I think the worst, and it's still, I think it's just always going to be like that, to be honest. But yeah, I've definitely got a lot better. I actually spoke to, I forgot this out, I wrote everything down on my phone thinking yeah, I'll keep checking back, I forgot. I also spoke to someone who specializes in health anxiety and medical anxiety, and she's kind of like a therapist, I guess, but she just really like specializes in that area, and she really helped me out. So I definitely like don't suffer in silence. Like my number one thing is like reach out to people and speak to people and let your voice be heard and like vent, because speaking to someone like a medical professional like that really helped. But yeah, that is currently where I am. So I'm in a lot better place than I was, which makes me so happy. But I just wanted to share it with you all and just let you know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel if you're experiencing anything like I did. I feel better now that I've kind of like told you guys about the fact that I have PCOS and IBS, and I just feel a lot like a weight's lifted off my shoulders, because I don't know, like it has really taken a toll on me, like being diagnosed with those two things. And it's something that I think about every day, and especially like, I'm not gonna lie, it might sound so stupid to some people, but like the PCOS belly and potentially the endo belly, it's really got me down a lot, I think. And I just wanted to be completely open and honest about it, because I've never really spoken about any of this online. But if any of you also suffer with any of these things, I would really appreciate like the comments, just so we can have a chat and we can talk about it. And yeah, I think it would just be really helpful to be honest with each other and just speak and just have like a nice open conversation about it all. But thank you so much for watching. I really hope you guys have enjoyed. I'm pretty sure this is going to be like a really long video, so if you have made it this far, I really appreciate it. I love you all so much. I'm now going to get up. I've got pins and needles in my legs because I've been sat in the same position for so long, and I am going to go and make some dinner. I'm going to make like a nice little salmon bowl. I think I fancy like a nice little salmon bowl. But yeah, I love you all so much, and I will see you very soon for a brand new video. Bye.